Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, and my co-host Justin Baker and I about to rank the top 10 Winnipeg Jets. So if you haven't listened to our other top 10 shows, go back, listen to every single one of them today, because why not? We've done definitely more than half the teams now, and we're rolling on with the Winnipeg Jets, they have an interesting history, because they were a team before. That team's now the Arizona Coyotes, but we wanted to rank this Winnipeg Jets team with the previous Winnipeg Jets team and also the Atlanta Thrashers. So
there you go.
It'll be a wild ride. So with that said, Justin, who just missed your list?
My just missed probably, again, one of my favorite goaltenders. We talk about him, Connor Hellebuyck. He just missed. He's, even though he is probably, I mean, when you really look at it, he's one of the more successful goaltenders in the franchise's history, but he's only been there a few seasons. So I just need a little bit more from him. Need a little bit more, a few more games, and then maybe he'll crack the top 10 for me. But after that, I got Brian Little, who is probably one of the only Jets. I think there's I think Blake Wheeler was there too for just a little bit, but from the Atlanta Thrasher days, and then Mark Scheifele as well. Not cracking my list.
Yeah, Mark Scheifele not on your list.
Not on my list.
It's interesting because he's like kind of that one guy that they drafted that has very much worked out. Brian Little also is, I mean, if you combine his Thrashers numbers with his current numbers on the Jets, I mean, he's second all time in scoring. So
yeah, I just look at the guys ahead of those two, and I'm just like, I would rather have those guys any season, when they were in their prime during their Jet days or Thrasher days, and would rather have those guys, I guess. All right. But
yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, who's your number 10?
Number 10 for me is a guy currently just had some successful surgery, but big buff for me, comes in at number 10.
Yeah, fourth all time in current Jets scoring, and for a defenseman, that's pretty solid. He also has, I think, the most penalty minutes in Jets history. Yes, he does, and has made a huge impact on the ice. I actually have him a little bit higher than you have him at number 10. So yeah, my number 10, I actually have Brian Little.
Brian Little, okay, that's fair.
Second all-time scorer, hard to ignore that. He's been there for a long time. Hasn't had a ton of personal success, but in terms of like huge seasons, he's not like he's ever been even maybe the best player on the team, but he's been so consistent and been a part of the organization for so long. It's tough to ignore that. Okay, so you're number 9.
Number 9 for me, a guy who never played with the actual Jets, but played with the Atlanta Thrashers. That is Marian Hossa.
Yes, old Hossa. It's hard to remember him playing for the Thrashers.
Right. Yeah, he had such longevity with teams like Pittsburgh and Chicago, and a small little stint with my Red Wings that you kind of forget that those early years in Atlanta.
Yeah, he was in Ottawa, and I believe he was dealt for Danny Heatley.
Yes, he was.
And then, of course, sent to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So
yeah, not a couple bad seasons. His first season there, 92 points in 80 games, followed up by another 40-goal, 100-point season, and then came back down a little bit, 56 points in 60 games, and then eventually dealt to the Pittsburgh Penguins to try to make a run at the Cup, ultimately thwarted by the Red Wings, and then the next year we know what happens with him in Detroit. So, yeah, number 9 for me, Marian Hossa.
All right, yeah, there's only one player a couple players who played a lot of games for these teams that averaged more points than he did.
Yeah.
In his time there.
Yeah.
What am I trying to say? In his time there. 1.117 points per game. There's only 3 guys that averaged more than that. So pretty solid, although albeit short. So he misses my list just because I guess I really had a hard time putting much Atlanta Thrasher in there, other than like, all right, you played for both teams, so I'm gonna toss you in there.
It is tough. I get it. I mean, let's face it, the Thrashers weren't around long, and they had like 0 playoff success. So
literally did not win a game in the playoffs. They got swept by the Rangers one year, and that was it. Okay, so
Your number 9.
Oh, my number 9. Yes, my number 9 is Dustin Byfuglien. So
Dustin
your number
Buff.
10
Okay.
falls to my 9. Let's go to your number 8.
Number 8 for me is Keith Tkachuk.
Playing for the former Winnipeg Jets.
Yes, the defunct. And I mean, let's face it, he wasn't there very long either, but he was a guy who just literally came out of nowhere. American-born guy who just made his name as a Coyote, but let's face it, he got better and better as the seasons went along. And when you look at the history of, all three of these teams we're looking at, the Thrashers and both different Jets teams, there really hasn't been a guy like him on the team where you can consider his ability to be a power forward and a scorer at the same time. And he did put up 140 goal season, 150 goal season. So not too many, Jets can say they've done that.
That's fair. Keith Tkachuk, not on my list. Instead, at my number 8 slot, I have a guy who missed your list, and that's Mark Scheifele.
Okay.
I may have him here based on what I believe he will do as well. But I mean, obviously he's proven that he's been a great pick. He's a good top line center, and he will be a good top line center for this team for a long time. So to me, he's a guy that can't not be on this list because they've actually had playoff success with him, albeit just winning a round here and there. But he's done something beyond just your regular season success. So
yeah,
he's my number 8.
I can't disagree with that. I would have to say probably in a couple seasons he'll easily, be up there in my top 8-7 players for sure. I mean, I do agree with you. I think he's probably going to be one of the better Jets when it's all said and done.
But missed your list.
But missed my list for now.
Number 7.
Number 7 for me is a guy who literally in the NHL only played 18 games with this franchise. Only 18 games, and that is Bobby Hull. Now, I wanted to leave him off the list, but and part of me also wanted to put him higher, and so I was very torn with where to put him when it came to greatest Jets, because I guess maybe we could say, okay, no WHA players, but you can't ignore the talent. He's probably the biggest name that this franchise has ever had, I think, so far. I mean, he had 400-point seasons. Total. I mean, his biggest one, 142 points and 74-75 for the Jets. And he did win a couple championships for him then. And so for me, that just was kind of hard to leave him off at that point, given what he did for this franchise.
Yeah, even if it was in the WHA, why not?
Yeah, I mean, even if he had been in the NHL, he probably wouldn't have had 400-point seasons, but he would have had some freaking amazing seasons. Yeah,
he would have. And for that reason, he's also my number 7.
Okay.
So, yep, I agree. I mean, even though we had talked, should we include the WHA, and we kind of said, nah, we'll keep it to the NHL. He did play in the NHL, so he is eligible. and he probably is the reason why the Jets were chosen as one of the teams to come over into the NHL.
Absolutely.
So because of that, I mean, we have the Jets. So, how can you leave the guy off the list?
All right. Perfect. Well, moving on then, shall we?
Yeah. My number 6 is Blake Wheeler.
Blake Wheeler. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a touch higher on my list. And by touch, I mean number 5 for me.
Okay. Yeah. So I have Blake Wheeler at 6. And I have Ilya Kovalchuk at 5.
Okay. My number 6 is actually Ilya Kovalchuk. Okay. So why don't we talk about both guys then? Let's dive in.
That's a great idea. So Blake Wheeler, obviously leading scorer all time for the current Jets. Ilya Kovalchuk, all-time scorer for the Atlanta Thrashers. I believe he was first overall pick.
He was. Yeah, selected in 2001.
Their second year or something like that, or third year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 615 points in 594 games, not to mention 328 goals. Ilya Kovalchuk was he was just a monster for that team, but literally the only good player there.
That's true. I mean, you really look at it, they didn't have a whole lot to celebrate, and he came in. And, I mean, he put up 51 points in 65 games his first season, so he lived up to expectations for a number 1 overall and did some good things, then eventually moved on to... was traded to New Jersey, and we know what happens there. He signs a 25-year deal with the New Jersey Devils and then gets just given the old stinky boot and goes over to Russia for a little bit, and now he's back. So.
Now he's back, slow as ever.
As ever.
Yeah, and as far as Blake Wheeler, I mean, he had a much different path to where he is now. He kind of toiled around and was drafted by the Bruins and was declared a bust, and he ends up in Winnipeg and kind of finds his game later on in his career and becomes, someone who's definitely up there in terms of being a very high-skilled winger, maybe slowing down a bit now. He's kind of entering his mid-30s, but he has been rock solid for this organization the whole time, and likely, putting up some of the best seasons that we've seen for Jets players.
Yeah, no disagreement there. So,
and kind of a guy who is, I mean, he's not the captain, but he is the captain.
He is the
captain. Yeah.
But he's also he is the leader in that locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, he is exactly what a captain should be. I think he provides great leadership, and he's a great veteran player that I don't think any team would hate to have. And I mean, let's face it. I mean, last year, what he put up,
291-point seasons in a row. You're not. Yeah, you can't ignore that. And then 270-something point seasons in a row before that. So
yeah, for a guy who's supposed to be like a power forward, he's not playing like a power forward. So
no. Okay, well, into the top four, and who's dropping at your number 4?
At number 4 is probably the most talented defenseman this franchise in terms of all three teams have ever seen, and that is Phil Housley to me. What this guy, I mean, granted, he was there for 3 seasons before moving on to the Blues, and then, a guy who has made his name in the Buffalo Sabres organization, and he's obviously very talented. I mean, let's face it, early 90s, there were still a lot of high-scoring teams, but we were starting to see the introduction of that trap-style defense, and he was still putting up, 70, 80, and then 90 points. He progressively got better on a Jets team that, when the league was progressively getting better at defense, and he just kept playing.
Yeah, the best seasons for a defenseman ever for any Winnipeg Jets. So, yeah, he's also my number 4. Even though he only played 232 games, it's hard to ignore 1.116 points per game.
Especially for a defenseman.
Yes.
Even better. You might as well put that up as 2 points a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We have, who's your number 3?
Number 3 is Thomas Steen. Tom Steen. I don't know. I've heard a couple different.
Thomas Steen, yeah.
Yeah.
Alex Steen's dad.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, this guy is a true Jets player because he spent his entire career with one franchise, which not many guys get to say they do that. And, he ended up finishing second all-time in points for the original Jets franchise with 817 points in 950 games. So not bad totals for a guy who played, late 70s into the mid-90s.
Not bad for a guy taken in the 5th round.
Yeah, to boot. Yeah, that's even better. And then, of course, we know what he did. Worldwide, he's one of the, considered one of the better Swedish players to come out of that era. And so for me at number 3, it's Thomas Steen.
Yeah, he won. They won, different medals. Only a gold in Elite Stein 81. I don't even know what that is.
Well, let's face it. I mean, back then in the
championships, they won the silver with him. And
80s and 90s, there were really like 4 teams. I mean. Sweden was just finding their way, and
yeah, it's true. I think we're probably going to have pretty similar lists from here on out.
Okay.
My only difference is probably our 2 and 3. So I actually have Thomas Steen a little higher.
Okay.
I have Teemu Selanne at number 3.
Oh, okay.
Selanne probably a better player than Thomas Steen, but again, it's hard to ignore the fact that Steen played almost 1,000 games for this team.
Sure, I understand.
So Selanne, though, 306 points in 231 games. He also scored 76 goals in his rookie season. So absolutely unbelievable. 1.325 points per game for Selanne. So
yeah, best season a Jets player's ever had.
Yep,
let's face it,
and probably will never have another one like that again.
Yeah, no one's getting 76 goals, anytime soon, but.
I think people thought maybe Patrick Laine would someday.
Oh,
but
goodness.
I don't think so anymore. Okay, so he's my number 2, my number 3. Tom Steen, my number 2. I assume Solani is...
He's my number 2 as well.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
not as well, but yes.
I think that leaves the number 1, which I think is pretty obvious.
Only one guy.
Only one guy. Your number 1 is?
Dale Hawerchuk.
Yes.
Yeah. Selected number 1 overall by the Jets as well. A guy who came in the 1981 draft. Played, how many seasons with Winnipeg?
Played 713 games with the Winnipeg Jets and had 929 points.
Yeah, 600-plus point seasons. I mean, you can't knock that production. Granted, it was in the 80s, but still, he was with a team that, really wasn't a contending team, wasn't expected to do a whole lot. Yes, they did make the playoffs, a few times, but,
yep.
Hey, there weren't as many teams back then, and they were in and out very quick in the playoffs, let's be honest. So, but he still showed up. He still played. He still put up over a point per game in the playoffs for this team. So
yeah, you can't be mad about that.
No.
There's not many guys that can say that. He also won a gold in 87 and 91 in the Canada Cup. So that's...
that was a big one.
He's on that 87 team with Gretzky and Lemieux.
Such a good team.
But yeah, I mean, he put up some unbelievable years. What, 500-point seasons? 6.
6, yeah. Just in his best. I mean, he consistently was putting up 40 goals every single season. I think his first season coming in, he put up 45, and then, he had one down year in 83, 84, but still managed to put up 100 points and then continued putting up 40 seasons or 40 goals every season until his last one there in 89, 90, and then eventually moved on to the Buffalo Sabres.
Yep. He was part of the Sabres team that was the old May Day.
Oh, yeah.
May
Day.
May scoring the OT goal.
Love it.
All right. Well, that is our Winnipeg Jets, Atlanta Thrashers, defunct Winnipeg Jets, top 10. Let us know what you thought of our list. And, maybe if you were going to not have one of those teams in there, maybe the defunct, would you add any players? Let us know at OT Hockey Talk. And, we'll look forward to talking to you guys very soon. And what team are we going to do next?
That's a good question, actually. You know what? I don't want to tell anybody.
Okay.
Because I don't know, first off. And then second, the suspense of like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do next? So.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in suspense. So, all right. Well, we will let you know on Twitter. You can go on there and Justin will let everyone know what we're doing next.